Hello, everyone. Welcome back from your breakout groups. I'm super excited to introduce our next guest. Margaret Laws is the CEO and president of Hope Lab. Margaret has distinguished herself as a catalytic leader in healthcare, forging cross-sector partnerships that drive positive social impact. At Hope Lab, Margaret leads a multidisciplinary team with expertise in healthcare, academic research, and design to create science-based technologies to improve the health and well-being of teens and young adults. I have been a fan of Hope Lab from the very beginning, early days, and it's been super exciting to see them grow and really have technology in mind that supports young people thriving and healing and feeling better about themselves. And welcome, please welcome Margaret to the stage.
And thanks, Soren. Really great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Margaret, welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having me be part of this.
Let's see. Is it my audio or your audio?
Or is it my audio? Are you not hearing me?
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay, sorry.
It sounds good here.
Can you hear Margaret?
Oh, everybody. Oh, you just can't hear.
Welcome, Margaret.
Well, you're going to have to do this without knowing what I'm saying. So you're going to have to trust me. Can you hear me?
Well, we can hear you now. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay.
So we're all working on this. Friday afternoon and technology are probably two not good.
Exactly. It's been, as I said earlier, it's been a long week. So bear with us, everybody. And thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and be joining you today.
Good. Now, so some of the people here probably know and have heard of Hope Lab, others haven't. So before we begin, can you just explain briefly kind of the vision and purpose of Hope Lab and your mission in the world?
Sure. Yeah, Hope Lab's really an interesting and sometimes hard to describe organization. We're a social innovation lab and impact investor. We've been around for more than 20 years, and we were founded and are still funded by Pam and Pierre Omidyar, founders of eBay, as one of the organizations that they support out there doing good, social good in the world. And from Hope Lab's very beginning, which was actually to create technology, in this case, a video game for kids with cancer, our mission has really been to try to improve the health and well-being of young people. And we've always had a basis in a couple of areas, tech and research. And so we try to do rigorous scientific work and use technology in positive ways, tech for good, to build behavior change tools and platforms to help young people have better health and better well-being. And our recent work has really all focused around mental and emotional well-being. So we've built things ranging from apps to bots to digital platforms. We've collaborated with organizations around the country and around the world. But we try to bring together a team of researchers, human-centered designers, and strategists to try to bring together the best of tech and research and build things and test them in collaboration with young people.
That's great. That's great. So could you talk about some of your current initiatives now? What are the, I know there's several on the website, but I'd love to talk about what some of the current initiatives look like.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that, like a lot of people out there, and certainly it's been in the works for us at Hope Lab for years, is we're digging much deeper into the potential for our work to contribute to greater health equity. So we're doing work now with a focus on helping all young people thrive, but with a deep and very specific focus on BIPOC and LGBTQ plus young people who've been most underinvested in or least well served by the market. So a few of the things we have going on at Hope Lab right now, we've been working on a product called Quit the Hit, a vaping cessation tool for young people, which is actually developed in collaboration with an organization called Rescue Agency and delivered via Instagram. We have a product that we've built with a company called Grit Digital Health called NOOD, and NOOD focuses on social connection, really combating loneliness among college students and now high school students. A really beautifully designed tool to help young people learn to make the social connections that will help them have meaningful relationships and less loneliness.
Could you describe like what would be one thing that app would do? So I'm lonely. I'm a college student. It's like, Soren, you're lonely. Would it be kind of?
I'm glad you asked, because this is kind of an interesting way to get into a little bit of the nerdiness and the way we think about this at Hope Lab. So one of the things we thought about was the fact that adolescence is a time of identity formation and risk taking. And so we thought about how might we tap into that, that desire for and that propensity to risk taking to actually help young people take social risks and to take sort of measured social risks and build the muscle. And so the context in which we developed NOOD was first year students coming onto a college campus. And what the app does is it asks you to kind of go on and talk a little bit about some of the things you're struggling with and where you think some of your strengths are, and then gives you prompts to actually go out in the real world to meet people, and things like asking someone to lunch, thinking about, asking a friend from class to study with you. And that all sounds very simple, but putting it in this sort of gamified and community context makes it easier for the young people who do struggle. And actually most young people do. It's sort of a myth that friendship is easy and magical. And some of the quotes that we got from kids were things like, no one ever taught me how to make a friend.
Yeah.
So we really try to build in some of those skills about what does it mean to form a meaningful connection, and how can some of these prompts and challenges help you do that. We have a journey map that takes them through. So it's out active on probably 20 or so college campuses now. And there's a high school version of it being developed by our partners in Colorado. Yeah.
Thank you. Adults hopefully can use it.
Need it too. Exactly.
Okay.
No, we all had really a wonderful time. We obviously built it with young people as co-creators, and they worked on the language and the visuals, but we've all used it as well. So loneliness, we talked a little bit about vaping cessation. We have a big project going on right now, which we call Project Milk, in honor of Harvey Milk. That is identity affirmation and exploration for young LGBTQ plus people, young queer people. So huge identity exploration movement going on among young people now. And this is really designed as a way for young people to explore gender and explore their relationship to it, but to actually feel affirmed and feel like they're part of a community that affirms them and cares about them. So we're doing that in conjunction with Centerlink, the LGBTQ plus center coordinator for centers around the country, as well as It Gets Better Project and some others. Excuse me. We've also got work going on, some developmental work going on around the contribution of and the importance of a sense of purpose in mental well-being among young people. Again, particularly as adolescents are in this identity development period, tapping into and recognizing and understanding a sense of purpose is a huge contributor to positive mental well-being. So we're working with Professor Tony Burrow at Cornell and others, an organization in New York called RipTape, to begin to explore ways that we can more help young people tap into that, discover it, connect with it. Yeah. And then finally, just last quick one, because we'll come to it later, but we've recently, about a year ago, launched what we call Hope Lab Ventures, which is our social venture fund. And we've got 5 companies we've invested in there across the spectrum, from BIPOC mental health, eating disorders, mental health in K-12 schools, AI algorithms to support mental health online. So we're collaborating with really amazing entrepreneurs and nonprofits in a variety of spaces, all teen, young adult, mental health focused.
Great, wonderful. Yeah, I would love to talk about that in a little bit. And I'm curious how you decide on what is a technology that actually improves somebody's life. Like, I know a lot of parents, if I ask most parents, one of the biggest issues is like, how do I get my kid off their phone long enough to have a dinner with us? Or, how do I get my kid not looking at the screen so long? And I know in COVID, the screens have actually been a lifesaver in some ways, because it allowed us to have some level of connection when we couldn't have human connection. At the same time, there's a pain point, right? That technology and the screens are kind of taking over. And so how do you kind of decide, like, oh, this is an intervention where technology could actually help, for example, with college students and loneliness, or where is it that how do you kind of best make those decisions where you think, okay, a new device or a new app here would be super helpful versus not helpful?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and not surprisingly, one that we get a lot. And it's a hard one. And I mean, one ironic thing about NOOD, the loneliness application I just talked about, is that the whole intent of NOOD was to reach young people on their phones and get them to do things in person together off their phones.
Yeah.
And we were launching it right when COVID hit. And so we actually had, we were sort of a little bit stymied for a moment, thinking, gosh, we built this whole thing that was about getting people to sit down across the table from each other and connect, and now they can't. And so we had to actually go into pretty rapid retooling of that to create the exercises so that they could be done virtually. And so that just an interesting aside, because we do think about that a lot. And one of the things we try to think about is not what should be done via tech, but that's where young people are.
Right.
And so to get them and to sort of get in their life path, we have to be engaged with tech. So that's a piece of it, I think, is to think about what is the life flow of a young person and where are they? I gave you an example a second ago about a really interesting platform, Coco.ai, that an amazing guy named Rob Morris developed, that is basically an algorithm that sits on social networks and in other digital spaces and can detect distress and route people to a peer supporter, someone who can just connect with them, or to a crisis line if that's what they need. And the idea of that was to say, well, let's not start a whole separate website and say, if you're feeling depressed, come here. Let's try to intercept people where they are. Mm-hmm. So I think one principle is that's where young people are. And if we want to find them and help support them, we're looking there. So that for us, that's a piece of it. And then I think there's another piece of it, which is, how might something digital be really supportive? I gave you an example earlier of the LGBTQ plus project that we're doing. And for a lot of queer kids, they find their community online. Mm-hmm. So again, they may not have, safe spaces in their home or in their immediate community, physical community. So we think a lot about that, about, is there a reason why a digital community could be really important here or extra supportive? So yeah, I think, one of the things that we've learned, we've done a couple studies over this past year, one in conjunction with Common Sense Media and the other with Crisis Text Line. And one of the things we learned, which is a really challenging finding, and I think we're trying to get our heads around what to do with it, is that for young people who are depressed, or who basically have signs of depression, the online connection and online platforms are especially important. So when we talk to young people and we parse them by those who have symptoms of depression and those who don't, the ones with symptoms of depression say they really are relying on online places and online connection. So I don't have the answer to this. It's definitely something we dive into. And my colleague, Danielle Ramo, and I just did a piece. And we basically laid out kind of a few things that we think are important. And the first is to draw from social connection science to really understand social connection and how it can be supported and mediated in a digital environment. During development, to prioritize tech equity and co-creation with the young people we're trying to serve. So let them tell us what's working and what's not. And then to the point I just talked about with Hope Lab Ventures, invest in tech for good over the long term. So really try to invest in companies that are caring about the potential detrimental effects of tech and trying to take approaches that can lead to better outcomes and more positive outcomes. So we're trying to adhere to those three principles, and we think about that as we begin each new project.
Great. And so while we're on the topic, I'd love to hear more about Hope Lab Ventures. And whenever anybody hears the word ventures or venture capital, I think the different ideas come into mind of what that means and what that looks like. And usually there's, expected, 50x returns that are hoped for. And how are you approaching the venture world somewhat from your particular interests and intention?
Oh, great question. So this is the second social venture fund that I've started or contributed to starting. I was previously in an organization called the California Healthcare Foundation and started a fund called the CHCF Health Innovation Fund. And we started it really to be obviously a social impact investor first.
Mhm.
So from a mission impact perspective, rather than a financial ROI, we obviously want the companies to be successful because we believe that they're doing great things. And if they can reach more people will get access to those great things. But we really invest from the perspective of alignment of the founders, alignment of the other investors, and a real desire of both the entrepreneurs and founders and other investors to work with underserved or underinvested populations and to work in areas that are important. So we invest in companies that are tackling something on the spectrum of mental and emotional well-being of young people. We look for founders and investors who are aligned with our values and our mission at Hope Lab. We want to see a real desire to serve on BIPOC and LGBTQ plus young people. We look to have underinvested or underrepresented founders in our portfolio. We're investing across stages, but what we do then is come in as a strategic investor, and we bring to the company, just like in any investment syndicate, each investor is hopefully bringing some superpowers and networks and connections that they have. And what we bring is this team of researchers, designers, and strategists who can help work with the company on things like user experience for a particular population or an impact pathway, understanding how something upstream, like a loneliness intervention, can have impact on depression and anxiety. So we do that kind of work in conjunction with the companies. And then we also work to try to help make sure that they get to underserved populations. So they're eligible, or they're delivering services to Medicaid populations, kids in public schools. So for us, it really is wanting to see people get access to valuable services and products at scale, and thinking about using our capital in any way we can to do that. So we'll invest in for-profits, we'll invest in nonprofits. We partner with nonprofit organizations to do projects. So we sort of think about this external investment piece of it as, a spectrum of using different kinds of capital to try to help these companies. And give you an example of some of the companies we've invested in. We have a company called Equip that is a digital or online program for eating disorders. Really amazing and getting great results. We've invested in a company called Hurdle Health, which is BIPOC mental health focused, so supporting culturally competent and culturally sensitive mental health care with diverse providers. Hazel Health provides physical and mental health services in K-12 schools around the country in about 60 districts. Wow. MindRight, we just closed that one 2 days ago, is a program of texting support for young people focused on teens and focused on BIPOC underserved populations with a real social justice mission. And then COCO, which I talked about a little bit before, a nonprofit that it uses amazing AI capabilities to try to help find people in distress in social platforms and get them rooted to peer support. And in the process, allows people to provide that support and is finding that those support providers, as you know well, and many people in this audience know well, are getting as much benefit often as the help givers are getting as much benefit as the help seekers. There's a real ethos in that program, in that company, around the benefits, the mental and emotional health benefits of giving help to others.
Yeah, beautiful. And do you just kind of trust the entrepreneur that they know whether the model is for profit or nonprofit? Like how do you decide helping, I don't know, teachers or children or something, like whether that's a for-profit or nonprofit endeavor? And it sounds like you've wanted to expand the frame a little bit to think, no, there's legitimate ways to do a for-profit company that's of service and that allows that company to expand and hire more people and have further reach and still keep certain values. Is that the premise?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. One of the things I do is teach in this course at Stanford Business School called Startup Garage. So every year and every quarter, I have just teams of students who are coming in and starting new companies. And a lot of the teams that work in health and education do come in with a question of, is this a for-profit venture? Is it a nonprofit venture? Why would it be one or the other? And I think that the values that are driving those entrepreneurs are a piece of it. But then that desire for scale and the time right now. I mean, I was just moderating a panel about mental health investment, mental health company investment. And we're in a moment right now where there's just a huge amount of capital available for mental health companies and a huge number of very, very values-driven entrepreneurs and values-driven companies going to market in a for-profit form. So I think you asked the question at the beginning, which I think is an interesting one. Do you sort of trust the entrepreneur? And it's one of the things that we look at when we come in as an investor. And I just think it's one of the pieces of this that's sort of an art, not a science, is you have to have a relationship and you have to just believe that you're aligned and that what they are trying to do is something that you can actually help them do. And so for me, sort of using networks that I've developed over 30 years of working in this field and a lot of time working in this sort of innovation for underserved space, I can find the companies that it feels like are really genuinely tackling these challenging parts of the market and just committed to doing it. And I will say, in all of my years of doing impact investing, which is now more than a decade, I've been incredibly impressed by, particularly in mental health broadly, but in mental health, how many people come into starting a company really from a place of and with an intention of ensuring that they serve populations that have been left out. It's been just a really important personal value of a lot of these entrepreneurs. And, I recognize that you said at the beginning, you hear the word ventures and you think of criticisms of venture capital, but I think there's also an incredibly vibrant market of people who want social capital to go out into the world and build big things that do good. So
and the for-profit model is just a better model for them, even though the examples we see of for-profit models, particularly with young people, aren't always the best. Like, how do we get them to click this more? How do we get them to do that more? But there's a model for growth and impact. It sounds like that sometimes the for-profit model is just, if you want to have that level of growth and impact, rather than trying to raise the money philanthropically, it's actually a better path to do the for-profit.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really difficult thing for a different conversation for another day. It's a really difficult thing to raise capital at the level that you need to really dramatically scale. I've been on boards and very involved with a couple of nonprofits that have scaled, but those entrepreneurs are spending 75% of their time raising money every year. It's a hard model. And so it has its place. And I think there are fantastic nonprofit models out there and even some that achieve pretty good scale. But I do think there's a reason that a lot of these entrepreneurs choose to take this path, and access to capital and sort of growth and speed of the market are often reasons to do it.
And what do you see? So we're experiencing COVID. It's uncertain whether things are going to open up soon or not so soon. What are some of the challenges you see young people facing amidst the COVID crisis? And how do we as parents and grandparents and caring people maybe better support young people from your studies and work in this area?
Yeah, no, it's been a really challenging time. We've been, I gave you one example of really interacting with college students, finding out they were going home, couldn't be in college. And rates of depression have really increased significantly from about 25% to more than 40% of young people saying they are showing symptoms of depression. For kids who've had COVID in their family, it's over 50%. Eating disorders, sleep, stress, worries about school have all increased dramatically for young people. And so, one of the questions we sort of have asked ourselves, vaping has gone, vaping is an example of sort of coping with stress. So, we're really part of the reason that we're so focused on this exploration into the role of sense of purpose. Is that what we're finding with a lot of young people is that this COVID has just been a real challenge for them in terms of, where am I, who am I, what is my sense of purpose, what's my identity? So we're trying to develop things that can help there. We've been supporting, as I mentioned before, LGBTQ plus young people who often are now, separated from supportive communities to try to put support services in place. And to just kind of lead with compassion and empathy. One of the things we talk about in the vaping project we work on in Quit the Hit is that if you come at that problem from a place other than a place of compassion and of trying to help the young person understand, whether it's your own young person or a young person you're coaching, understand what are these hard feelings that are leading to this vaping behavior that they don't actually want. They want to stop, but there are feelings that they're vaping to suppress or in reaction to. So I think it's just a really important time to be acknowledging and helping young people feel their feelings, understand their feelings, and understand that a lot of the things that they've been feeling in response to what COVID has brought all of us are very legitimate and really challenging. But to help them tap in, we've seen amazing activism among young people during this time as well. So helping young people tap into what is it that fires you up? What are the causes, whether it's global warming or racial equity, that you feel excited about taking on in the world? How can you begin to create an identity that taps into your power and your ability to kind of have this impact on the world? So a couple of the other things we're working on, we've got one project with Active Minds, college student mental health organization, and WellBeing Trust to provide training and support for students who want to be mental health activists. So how do we help people who are having these experiences get connected to opportunities to speak for themselves, speak for their generation, and take action?
That's
so
great.
Compassion, support, and helping tap into an identity or a sense of purpose that can get kids really fired up about how they can contribute.
Beautiful. Thank you, Margaret. It's the time has zoomed by. I wish we had another 20 or 30 minutes, but it's been really, really lovely. And thank you so much for all the work. So for people who want to find out more about Hope Lab, hopelab.org. Can they learn about your projects there?
HopeLab.org, yeah, absolutely. We're, as I noted a little bit earlier, we're doing, you can learn about projects we're working on currently. We'll have an update shortly about some of the work we're doing in Hope Lab Ventures and with the nonprofits we're working with. But would encourage people to reach out. You can reach me at mlaws@hopelab.org or visit our website at hopelab.org, and we'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks
Really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Take care.